Pittsburgh. Are we supposed to wear the new garb to June?
No. Good point. Friday is a sacred day. Friday, every woman and every man has to be in his holy garb. He has to be in Emma, Azaba, Jalabiya, the whole thing. No cap or the sweaters on top of it. You know what I'm saying? None of those things. Everything is strictly did. And the women have to be in full garb, in white, veiled and all. So we start off with one day, which is Yom Jum'ah, right? And that day becomes a holy day. There's no laughing and playing and acting stupid. There's no listening to any other music except religious music, Thought Nubian or El Banat or Ketoro, stuff that doesn't have any lyric pertaining to it. And when I say that, I don't mean jazz by Coltrane. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I mean easy, peaceful music. You try to keep a more religious and tranquil environment on Friday, which takes us into Friday evening, which 19 hours before the sunset takes us into the Shabbat, which everybody has a book on the Sabbath. You can read it and find out what we start to do. Eventually they'll be reading at Menzel Arab, the place of worship, right? They'll be reading there like they used to do in the times of Nabi Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, Moses. But these are things that you'll get into. But Friday is set aside. Now, if a sister comes prancing around in her Badlahin, right? Badlahin, right? She is in mourning until the next week. That means she has to wear that garb you have on, but in black, with the veil on for the whole week. Not miss a prayer. If she comes on Friday, if anybody violates the sanctity of Friday, going into the Sabbath, that person is told, you better be in the masjid for 5 daily prayers. You follow that? And you wear that badlahin, that veil, and that brother puts on that jalabiya the whole week. Now, if someone does it because they think that they're more spiritual and they keep doing it on purpose, let me just throw them out. Because we'll understand some sister who just wants to keep a veil on might use that as an excuse. Let me just say, get out. Then go wear in the streets and wear your veil. You'll understand why we're coming out the veil in time, believe it.
Also, I'd like to know
Yarmulke is the Yiddish word. The modern Hebrew word is kippah, from the ancient Semitic word kifar. The word kifar is the same word kafir, but not used in the sense of a kafirun, but used in the sense of kafir, that which covers the molar. Right? This is something that was worn way back in Israel. You follow? The Taj, which is the dome, which is this, can I take your hat a minute? Which is this hat here, is one of our dress. This hat is usually worn beneath the imma, which is the wrap. I used to advise brothers, do not wrap an empty box. They didn't understand what I meant. To have some brother who just took Shahada last week and don't even know how to pray, walking around with a full imma on, it's like giving a person a gift all wrapped up and nothing's in it. Because he ain't got nothing up here yet to wrap. You know what I'm saying? Wait till you got something here and then wrap it. And then you protect it. But anyway, so this can be worn, this here cap here, could be worn without an emma, and we refer to it as a taj. Okay? Then there's the imama. The imama is what you find in the scripture used where they use the word yarmulke. Right? And the imama is actually a pill box with the imma wrapped around it, which you see my father in the book wearing. And that went all the way back to the rabbis of Israel, the tribe of Judah. They used to wear those with multiple colors, because they had, you know, each tribe had a color pattern, blue, white, red, etc. And then they would have the imma tied around it. So you have the taj, which is the dome. The tagiyah, something was later added into the language. Tagiyah. You have the taj, right, the dome. Then you have the amma, which is the amma that goes around that. Then you have the imama, and then you have the kufi. And this kufi from kufa and kufar just means to cover the molar. You follow? Now, the question is, can you wear this? Sure. You shouldn't wear that. Them pillboxes should stop being worn because they're associated with Orthodox or Shia or any other form of Mohammedism. Of course, they hate when you call them Mohammedans, but we know that's exactly what they are, Mohammedans, right? So being new, you don't know that years ago we wore this, and we wore all black. That was the original dress, right? We never refer to ourselves as Muslims except in a book. It said, Muslims are alone in their sorrow. Never. We refer to ourselves as Hebrews, Islamic Hebrews. You follow that? And we did not socialize with any Muslim mosque. We socialized only with Israelites. We would go to their temples for the Sabbath and everything. That's where we was at. That's what Ansars used to do. We did not classify ourselves as Muslims. It was conversion. People converting into our community from other communities that were once Sunnis or once followers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who brought in more of the thing, and they would ask those questions, and I would say, yeah, well, sure, yeah, well, sure, yeah, well, sure, and it would keep leading down. Next thing you know, we look more like Orthodox Sunni Muslims than the very Orthodox Sunni Muslims themselves. Yavala, we went so deep into the law, we lost contact of what we were. We were Islamic Hebrews who followed Abraham's religion. The word Muslim to us is used by its definition. You understand what I mean by that? One who is peaceful. You follow? And that's hard to apply to ourselves because it's so difficult to stay peaceful in such an unpeaceful world. So to say we live in a state of Islam, state of tranquility and peace, it's really lying. The title Muslim, and I told brothers when they asked, are they Muslims, that their response is no, because when a person asks you a question, they're usually basing it on their definition. It's going on inside their head. You follow that? So when you walk up to a person who's been in the Nation of Islam and don't know nothing about any other Islam, you say, I'm a Muslim. He says, you got a beard. Where's your bow tie? He only has his definition. If you walk up to a Sunni, he say, I'm a Muslim, he starts saying, well, you got that 6-pointed star. Ain't that what they say? Why do they say that? Because they have their definition of what a Muslim is. They haven't ventured into what the word Muslim means. They don't care. They have all agreed that they will hearken to each other's definitions, because if they stopped and looked at a Moroccan, if you stood a Moroccan in full Moroccan attire here, and an Egyptian in full Egyptian attire here, and a Saudi Arabian in full Saudi Arabian attire here, and a Pakistani here, and a Turkish there, and Iranian there, Irani, and a Libyan there, and someone from Algeria, you know what you have? All different kind of dresses. Tarbushes, fezzes, silhams, jubba, jalabiya, tagiya, taj, fez, jannah caps, sudriya, jackets. Pakistanis wear long jackets and pants, and and some have the mustache shave, and some has the beard, some has their beard and mustache shave. And if you put the Nation of Islam in, then you got a bow tie and no beard, no mustache, and a Caesar hairstyle, and you add the 5 cents in there, you have the average bag person, right? So as it goes on down the line, if you stood them in front of you, you'd have no direction. So you'd have to go by who you like. So in view of the fact that Pakistanians, the Ahmadiyya, were one of the first groups to settle in America, most of the Sunni Muslims are influenced by Ahmadiyyaism, yet they finally learned not to be Ahmadiyya. So now they call themselves Sunnis, but they still walk around looking like Pakistanis, because the Pakistanis are the ones you see with no mustache. The ones in Saudi Arabia usually wear a little beard and a mustache, right? That's their look. But most Sunnis who follow them don't even look like them. They walk around looking like Pakistanians, but saying they're following Saudi Arabians. Now, if you look at the Egyptians, they wear what's called a kakula, or iba'a. And they have a very similar to the imama they wear, which is a little red fez, because they were once Turkish. Right? Now, you take the Nubians in Sudan, what do they wear? A white emma. And the Turkish wear a red fez. So when you look on the tapes of Sheikh Abdul Basit, and you see them with this little red fez in his emma, you see where Nubians and Turkish combined. You see? If you see pictures of my father, you see he has this long ridda on, right? But it's hot in Sudan, it gets colder in Egypt, so they put buttons on it and buttoned it up. Now you see what they wear is a long ridda with a closed neck like this and buttons all the way down, baggy sleeves in Egypt. And they're walking around with a fez or tarbush, a Turkish hat with an emma on it. That's their dress. Now, their jalabiya is, or jalaba as they call it, galaba or galabiya, right? Is straight over, slit down, opens up, real baggy sleeves, flares out. Go down to Nubia and you see that's where that came from. Because in Turkey, they wear suits and jackets and pants and fezzes. And bow ties, that's their look. And dark, thick plastic glasses, that's the Turkish. Ain't nothing but Caucasus people anyway, though. You understand what I'm saying? So now that's a standard look. Now let's travel all the way to the other side and go to Morocco, where they wear a fez, right? And what they call a jibla. Their jibla has tight sleeves, tight, stitches with thread on it up the front, up to here, and a hood on the back of it. Then they take like the jacket I had on the other day, that long cape-like thing, with a hood on the back of that. And it's called a silham. They throw that over their back, and they wear slippers with the foot out, a little pointy elf-looking thing. And that's the Moroccan dress. Correct? Now we go to Saudi Arabia, and we get this guy, he's standing here with little mustache, little teeny beard, right? He has a shawl with a kutra, a rope, which used to be a camel, which is tied a camel's foot with it. He wears that with a little point down here. Down the side, he wears a jubba, which has sometimes even a collar on it like a shirt from France. right? Closed up, sleeves closed, holes in the sleeves, tight button down, and Italian loafers. Or sandals with the toe out. Right? And he has this other cloak he wears with a gold seam, like a big baggie, and he just puts it on. Still Ridda, same name, but the dress is changing. The style is changing, but they keep the name so they don't argue with each other. So now here we got 3 different men standing here. All of these men tell me and you we're wrong for wearing a 6-pointed star. Right? Because they follow the sunnah of Rasulullah Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is one sunnah. Because Muhammad said, there's 2 things I left for you in their hadith. 2 things I left for you. Right? Now, first of all, I'm sorry if I step on anybody's toe, hurt somebody's feelings, but Muhammad didn't leave me no Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran down. Somebody made a mistake. Muhammad ain't left me nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Somebody's playing word games on us. That's that Muhammadan worship. Muhammad didn't leave me no Quran. The Quran came down on the night of power, or the night that it could come down, Laylatul Qadri. And it came down with the Malaika, wa ruhu. You understand? And Muhammad is not Malaik, and he is not a ruhu. He was a rajul, a man. And he said in the Quran, I'm just a man. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. If I knew, I wouldn't have the problem I'm having. You understand what I'm saying? So that's a big mistake. But okay, for Sunni Muslims' sake, Muhammad left y'all 2 things. He ain't left us nothing, homie. Left y'all 2 things. Al-Quran wa sunnatuhu, and his path or his way of doing things. Right? But it's in a single sunnah. A sunnah. Got that point? Now, which, like they did in the program, will the real follower of Muhammad's sunnah please stand up? You follow? Because if a Moroccan is standing here totally differently dressed from a Turkish, who's totally different dressed from a Pakistani, who's totally different dressed from a Sudanese, who's totally differently dressed from an Egyptian, who's totally different dressed from an Iranian, and now they got Chinese Muslims dressing the way they dress. And then you got the Nation of Islam. I mean, now which one of y'all do we follow? Because here we are lost in the wilderness of North America, just becoming conscious of self. And we're looking for some path to follow, so we'll be on that sunnah. Because we see the Quran, we got that, okay? Now we got to get to the second part of it, which would be that sunnah. Who is following the sunnah? These people go from Morocco, Turkey, Nigeria, all over the world to Egypt to study in Cairo. Under those men dressed like that, but then go back home and put on their own national dress. But the moment you say, well, part of our national dress is a 6-pointed star and crescent, what do? They say this symbol here. Let's get into that too. This symbol here is a Jewish symbol. You follow that? Why do they say that? Because if you look in the Quran was not intended to be an educational text. It wasn't. It doesn't educate you in anything. There's nothing that's said in the Quran that wasn't already said in the Tanakh or the Torah. There's no history. There's no new history in there. All it did is try to answer little mistakes that was made by the rabbis who fell away from the path and fell into the Talmud and the Mishnah and started adding all these traditions and customs in and lost the path. And they told them in the Quran that if you follow Muhammad and obey what he says, you'll make it to paradise. Speaking to the so-called Yahudi. Poor translators, of course, have turned Yahudi into Jew. We know that the word Jew, J-E-W, has nothing to do with the word Yahudi. right? Which we know can be done this way. Or they take this off and they put a ha here, or they put a the there in translation. We know all of it comes from the same root. I'd like to be writing in Nubic, but y'all have to learn it, right? Right? Which would be the root had for guidance. You follow that? Which is the same word as, you know what I'm going to write. Hadi, from where the word Mahdi comes from. You follow that? Guidance. You see it? So the word Jew, J-E-W, has nothing whatsoever to do with the tribe of Israel and Jacob's fourth son, Judah.
In their articles on Khazars, the Jewish encyclopedias tell us that in the 8th century A.D., Jewish missionaries ventured north of Babylon to the land of the Khazars between the Caspian and the Black Seas. Khazaria was a vast grassland on what is now the plains of southern Russia, inhabited by a race of merchants, artisans, and warriors of Hunnish Turkish stock. About 740 AD, the king of the Khazars converted to Judaism and made it the state religion. Incredibly, within a few centuries, the people of Khazaria convinced themselves that they were not Gentiles after all, but the physical descendants of Abraham. Thus, by the 10th century AD, a nation of proselyte Jews thrived in what is now central Russia. During the Middle Ages, the fierce Mongols from the east and Russians from the north drove the Khazars west out of their ancient homeland. Most settled in Eastern Europe, especially Poland, where they established communities of artisans and traders. Judaism thus became divided into two basic groups which remain today: the Ashkenazim, which are the Khazars of the east, and the Sephardic Oriental, which are Jews of Spain, Turkey, and lands bordering on the Mediterranean. Today, the Ashkenazim, or Khazars, are the vast majority, about 80% of those who call themselves Jews. The two most recent premiers of Israel illustrate these two racial types. Shimon Peres is a Sephardic Jew from authentic Jewish stock. Yitzhak Shamir, like Menachem Begin, is Ashkenazim or Khazar in origin.
But Arabs, pale Arabs, who only study the Quran and Hadith and won't step any further, they won't even implement the study of the Torah or the Injil or the book of Barnabas or the book of Hikmah. They won't even introduce these or Sahaf into their teachings. So they leave their people numb. You follow that? And this is one of y'all's biggest problems. Trying to converse with one of these numb people about a simple thing like Mogen David or the Star of David. Forget the crescent is there. And just look at the star for a minute. Without the crescent, you still come down to an Islamic symbol if Muslims are saying that Nabi Dawood was just that, a prophet of Allah or an apostle of Allah, and his name is mentioned in the Quran, and that he followed Islam, the religion of Abraham, Millah Ibrahim al-Islam, right? So that would still be an Islamic symbol. But there's nowhere in history where you find a five-pointed star written in any scriptures or law pertaining to Islam, Judaism, anything. But you will find that the Jew, the J-E-W, from the Caucasus Mountains, and the pale ones that mix their seed here in Israel, those devils, you'll find that they had a five-pointed star as their symbol before, called the Seal of Solomon. It was used in witchcraft to keep Khanas down. And it's still being used today in governments and in witchcraft, the pentagram.
Jewish Encyclopedia, in its article on Judaism, says modern Judaism and the Judaism of the Old Testament are very different. It says that after Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judah in the 6th century BC and led the Jews to distant Babylon, the Jews were faced with challenges to their faith they had never before experienced. Ever since the time of Solomon, the religion of Israel had centered around the magnificent temple in Jerusalem with its sacrifices and rituals. Migrating across North Africa and Central Europe, the great majority of Jews who had lived in Babylon for almost 1,600 years now began to find their destinies in the cities of the West. Yet in coming to the West, Jews found their Christian neighbors extremely intolerant of the antisocial deviations Jews had taken for granted in Babylon. In order to survive, it was necessary to abandon such Babylonian traditions. But that was not as easy as it sounds. For 1,000 years, the Pharisees had commanded such deviations. Most Jews could not bring themselves to defy the authority of the Pharisees.
But you can spend all day talking to a Sunni about that. And it just won't get nowhere, because he's just too thick. He's summun, bukmun, hummun, deaf, dumb, and blind. Allah says you just wander on. So now we come to a problem. What sunnah do we tell our people to follow? Here we are, a nation of people who were lost, who've now found ourselves. Correct? And we're looking for the path back home to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we want to get back to the bosom of Allah. When we leave this physical world, we want our soul accepted back into the garden from which we was cast out for our stupidity because we were beguiled by the serpent, a nice word that means tricked. So we don't particularly want to be tricked again, correct? So we asked the Arab world for 22 years in the form of pamphlets and books, question us and prove us wrong, but put us on the right path. And they had the option to come into any of our communities over that period of 22 years, I should say, and stand at that mic, and I would even let them come up to the pulpit and give us truth based on the words of Allah, not of any man. And if you give us the truth and defeat what we're saying, then we will follow you, because you have the path back to the bosom of Allah. And that's all we're interested in. We're not being Christians belonging to some church just to be here. Like some of your relatives, they say, I don't believe in what they're doing. It's just a church. You know, we go to picnics and we have a good time. We like each other. Well, I'm not particularly interested in being around a bunch of black people just because I like them. We got to have something in common. And the thing we got to have in common is our desire to get back to Allah. The moment you lose that, I have no desire to be around you. You follow? Because we're not the best company. As long as we're hating ourselves and thus hating each other. You understand what I'm saying? So we asked the Arab world, come forth. Prove us wrong. We addressed the Quran, the Torah, the Injil, what prophets are, what angels are, right? What to do at birth, what to do in sex. We put it all out there. And nobody could stand up. And don't tell me they ignored us. If they did, there wouldn't have been no cult book. And they should have let the cult book get printed in Jamaica or in America, so it wouldn't have been so obvious that the Saudi Arabian world was behind it. Because you, as a black man, a Nubian, cannot go to Saudi Arabia and indulge in any business. Bilal Phillips tells them that now. I got a latest tape on him speaking to them when he tells them to go to Belize. Not to Saudi Arabia where there's money. Not to Kuwait. He's telling them to go to Belize out of his own mouth.
Each and every person who prays here at Masjid Taqwa will now pack his bags and head for Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia will not allow you to make hijrah there. And there's no point asking, why won't Saudi Arabia allow us to make hijrah there? Because they won't. And Allah will not ask us, why didn't Saudi Arabia allow us to make hijrah there? He'll ask us, why didn't we make hijrah? So it means that we have to find elsewhere. And so that this is not just a theoretical presentation, Allah has blessed me with traveled, both in the United States, in Central South America, and in the Caribbean, the islands. And throughout my travels, I have kept an eye open for a point of hijrah. There are a number of different attempts that are being made in the country here. I've visited some. I've invested in some. Because my desire is to make that hijrah also. I know some of you may wonder, well, you've been over in Saudi Arabia for the last 16 years. You thought you made hijrah there. No, I told you. It's not possible to make hijrah there. I would like to. Mecca, Medina, are beautiful places to live. But you, as a non-Saudi Arabian, cannot buy land there. You cannot own land there. So therefore, you can't make hijrah. So that's only a temporary stopping off point. I went there for knowledge, right? Alhamdulillah, I found in a far-off place, not really too far off, which some of you, or many of you, probably have never heard of. What appears to me to be a classical, beautiful opportunity to focus for hijrah for those people who have a desire to make that hijrah and who do not see in the existing circumstances here that opportunity. The place I found is a country which used to be known as British Honduras. It is now known as Belize. It has borders with Mexico, and you can drive there from here. It's about an hour and a half flight from Miami.
Some little country way off the tip of Mexico where 70 or 95% of people are Christians, and there's revolution and riots and bad soil. This is where he sends it. All we asked for was to stand up and prove us wrong, but use the scriptures of Allah. And if you can prove us wrong and what you say is right, then we will follow you. But if you can't prove us wrong, and you can't prove us wrong, then you should have stopped doing that stupidness and that silliness. Found them Pakistanis who don't know where they're going. Egyptians don't know where they're going. The Moroccans don't know where they're going. The people of Libya don't know where they're going. They can sit in a room together and don't question each other. Shouldn't somebody from Saudi Arabia say, well, we're from Saudi Arabia. We're from the city of Rasulullah, alayhi salatu wasalam, and this is how he dressed. You were wrong. As wrong as when I pull out my six-pointed star and you say, that's wrong. Or is it just that I have to be wrong? Because I'm supposed to be your nigger slave. I'm supposed to listen to you. But history has proven to us that you, Mr. Whitey, was once our slaves. And that you once listened to us. You follow that? And then when it says Allah so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that your description of him in the Bible is that he has lamb's wool hair and feet like brass, fine brass, as if it's been burnt in a furnace. Your description of the gift to the world from the Heavenly Father is a Nubian. You follow that? Don't try to tell us Chaldeans ain't black. The pictures are on the wall. Right now in the Persian Gulf, the pictures are on the wall where they carved them in. You can see the little knotty hair and the dark skin where Abraham was born and of where Abraham came. And what was Abraham then? A Nubian. A Chaldean, but a Nubian. And we go to Egypt. And we go down to the real part of Egypt, which is really up into Nubia. They call it down when it's really up, the Nile. We go into Nubia and we see the pictures on the wall, hieroglyphics. And we see Nubian people in Egypt. We go into South America and we see Nubian people, even on the shores of America, before Columbus's invasion, before the so-called Aztecs and Mayans moved up here. When America and Africa parted, we were walking on that spot, back and forth, hunting, fishing, and building. So when it parted, some of us were still over here in America, which is called America today, the land of the eagle. You follow that? So we know who we are. We know that we was created supreme. Put on your coat of armor. Just put on the armor of Allah and be ready. That's what we did. We know who we are. We know we're the people that got to teach everybody on the planet. But what I found out is we got to get together first and teach ourselves. We got to get back into ourselves. We ran out there and we're not prepared. Right? We got to get ourselves organized and set these classes up right and get this message across to everybody so everybody here is teaching the same message wherever they are. And where you come in is you got to stop trying to have your own sunnah of what I teach. Add in a little flavor when you can't answer a question. You can't answer a question, say, I can't answer the question. I'll get the question though, because I'm going up there Saturday and I'll see the man and I'll ask. And if I can't get the question this week, I'll have it next week, but I'll get it for you. You follow? But don't get up there and try to answer questions you don't know how. And then you mislead people. You misguide them. And all those words, Huda, Mahdi, falls to dust, to naught. You understand what I'm saying? But we asked the Sunni world, show us which one of these guys is following the one man, Muhammad. Who did he dress like? Did he dress like you, Mr. Moroccan? You, Mr. Turkish? You, Mr. Egyptian? You, Mr. what? Persian, Mr. Iran? You, did I leave anybody out? Saudi Arabian? You, Mr. Pakistanian? You, Mr. Sudanese? Which one of these men did he dress like? Or did he change into each person's culture that didn't even exist in his time? Then, before its time, I mean, he was a prophet, he could have did that. He could have dressed like Moroccan before they developed their dress. But he didn't. Because you don't have none of that written in your hadith. You describe the way he dressed, and then you don't dress that way. We are Hebrews. We follow Abraham's religion. Get that through your head. We're only Muslims by the definition of a person aspiring to be peaceful. We are not Muslims in the sense of following Muhammad. There was a picture here last week of a Kaaba. And I said, you got an idol on the wall inside the masjid in Manzil Allah. There's a Kaaba on the wall. That's an idol. Because there's a stone in the building that people go kiss and lean on and grovel at and cry on. You follow? And it doesn't say that in the Quran. It don't say for us to go to Mecca and lay on the black stone and slob and kiss and cry and it doesn't tell us to do that there. It tells us that was a sacred seat or site. Right? But how many, as you read in the 360, how many Kaabas are there really? Will the real Kaaba stand up? And I would tend to think that if you are basing it on Abraham, and Abraham is buried in Iraq, in Syria, in a place called Khalil, there's a mosque there, and that's where your Kaaba should be, really. Really. Because that's where Abraham stopped. If that's where he's dead, that's where he stopped. had a problem as a nation of people. We slowly but surely got lured into the Islamic world. The Islamic world is like vegetable soup. Everybody got their own letter. And they all justify why they do wrong, and they're always ready to kill somebody like Dr. Rashad Khalifa or Solomon Rushdie or Dr. Anis Sharosh. They want to kill them because they take it upon themselves to question what they do. I mean, come on. You see 5 guys from 5 different countries standing there dressed different, all saying we follow the Sunnah of Muhammad. There's a question there, buddy. In case you didn't realize it, there's a question in the making there. Which one of y'all, now if there's a learned man from each, we really have a problem. If he's a regular layman, he can say, oh, well, I just dress like this, traditional. But if there's a Maulana here, and a Sheikh here, and what they call a Mufti here, and a Fendi here, and they got all these different titles, though, and all these guys standing there with white beards, and some with beards, some without, and they're all supposed to be learned. One of y'all is right, and all the rest of y'all are wrong, or even all of y'all are wrong, but all of y'all can't be right. So now we found our dress in Abraham's religion, because according to you and your teachings, Sunniism, you follow? Muhammad was born in Mecca during a pagan time, when there were pagans there. And pagans did not dress in the Sunnah. They were all kind of colors. You made the mistake, Mr. Sunni man, when you made the movie Muhammad. And you showed all of them dressed in all these funny colors, and then after Muhammad came, they got in white. Right? But Muhammad must have been dressing in the same colors of all his descendants and relatives, pagan clothes, until they went somewhere on their first hijrah. And if we look today at where they went, and then look back to 1400 years ago when he was here, and then look past the 1400 years ago all the way back to the 6th century, when the original black Israelites migrated out of Asia and over into Africa and became known as the Ethiopians, Habashians, or Falashans. If we see them, and you have seen them on television, they're dressed like you with an imma. Beard, long white robe, and an imma. They may have a Coptic cross if they were Coptics. They may have a 6-pointed star if they were so-called Hebrews. But in Ethiopia, they're dressed in a long white robe and imma. Is that correct? Now, if Muhammad didn't dress like that originally, and then he sent his followers over there on their first hijrah, and they got accepted there and lived amongst them, and then came back, and then they moved to Medina on a second hijrah, and they bumped into more Jews there in Medina called Yathrib, who also dressed the same way in white and were following certain holidays that Muslims didn't have, like Ashura, which became Eid al-Adha, the sacrifice, which they say right in their hadith, Muhammad saw the Jews doing it and said, we have more right to Moses than them, so we're going to do it. So he did it with them. Later on, it became a Sunni Muslim holiday. You follow what I'm saying? And they have Muhammad's Day, because they made the first month Muharram, phonetically real close to Muhammad, and they celebrate that as New Year's. And then the so-called Jew have Rosh Hashanah, which is no more than Ra'as Hasana, the head of the year, New Year's. You see what they did? They took little things, the so-called Arabs, took things that they learned from the Ethiopians, which by the way happened to be what complexion? Black, Nubians. Not black like in dark, black like in whatever color we are as people of color. Right? And they had the white robes and the embers. They had the beads. You follow that? They prostrated in prayer on the floor. They had prayer mats, but they read the Torah. And in their holiday for the sacrifice, they were talking about Isaac, Ishaq. So when someone stole the holiday, watch this close, or used it, they had to say, let's take the Isaac out and add the Ishmael in. Which means they had to study the Torah first, see it said Isaac, saw the word and the name Isaac in the Torah. It's not in the Quran anywhere. As the Quran came after that, because I know and you know if they lived in Ethiopia amongst the philosophers, they had to read well, there wasn't no Quran yet. The Quran was written after that. So there was a chance for it to have Ishmael if there was a confusion in the hearts of the followers of Muhammad. If there was a confusion in their minds as to whether it was Ishmael or Isaac, and there was in Ethiopia with Isaac followers, then there was a chance as the Quran was being revealed, well, it revealed to say that Jesus was not crucified. It was correcting other errors. So why didn't it correct that error? Why didn't the name Ishmael appear in the Quran with the sacrifice? Because Allah intended them to recognize who they say they recognize. Right in the Holy Quran, 2:136. They say they recognize all of Abraham's family and the tribes. And ain't that Isaac? So ask them, well, what do y'all observe that the so-called family of Abraham observed? And if you say you recognize them as prophets. I mean, because listen, if Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam did everything the Quran commanded, there would have been no difference between him and the Jews. They originally faced Jerusalem in prayer. The word masjid doesn't alleviate the word synagogue. The word masjid means where you prostrate. Sajada. So, just because we're prostrating in this building, it doesn't make it a masjid. We made it a masjid because we're prostrating in this building. And so if I have my prayer rug out in the middle of Central Park and I'm prostrating on the space of my prayer rug and I put a mihrab there, because you said in your hadith we must put something in front of us to establish a mihrab, then I got a little masjid I'm on. So wherever I put my prayer rug down and prostrate, that is the... So where's our temple? If where we prostrate is a masjid, and any way we prostrate could be a masjid, where is our temple and what do we call it? It was called a synagogue. Right? That's what it was called. Whether we prostrated in it or not. And so-called Israelites go in their synagogue originally and they prostrate. So therefore, their synagogue is also a masjid. And our masjid is also a... They wear a talus. It's called a shawl. Like that, brother. They have stripes in it. It's like that, brother. They use a tefillin for prayer, like when you see the Muslims put the kutra and shawl on. Correct? With the stripes in it, the same thing like we do. They wear hats like we do. We have modernized them and bushed them and shaped them all out of shape, but they basically, there's not much difference between what he has on here and what I have on. But what he has on is just that it's starting to stretch past the forehead. Probably started with people burning their head and getting scars, trying to put something down here to stop that pain. Otherwise, your part of your prayer would be Allahu Akbar, ouch. When you hit that ground and hit that scar, I used to have one, I burnt my head in Mecca. And I said, this is real silly. When I was doing it, I was saying, this is dumb, this is burning. I got a scar on my head, permanently. Everybody walking around with these scars, with like burning a hole in your face is a good thing to do when they tell you don't disfigure your body. They teach you don't disfigure your body, but you walk around and burn with a disfigured body. You know what you see when you look at Sunni Islam? You look at anti-Christism, anti-Allahism. Everything they do is going against it, and we were in it. We were in it and on the same wagon with them. Praise be to Allah, we jumped off the wagon. You wrestle with me. Stay on the wagon, fool. I didn't jump down. I'm saying, get down here because I got y'all on the wagon. So we on the wrong wagon. We don't have to be there. Red Arabs have to be there because they can't be Ethiopian if they wanna. They can't be Nubians if they wanna. They can't be Egyptians if they wanna. They can't be Chaldeans if they wanna. They can't be the original Syrians if they want to. They cannot be us. What they gave us is a whole new identity. It's called Africanism. You understand that? And they condensed us to a certain continent and call it Africa, Afriqiya, Faraka, to divide us up. And we became Nigerian and Ghanaian and Angolan and what? Libyan and Zulu and Sudanese and Somali and Chadians and Moroccans and Barbados. He said Barbados. Barbados. He said Barbados like that's in Africa. Okay, Barbados. But then, when he meets us on the street, we are no longer that, we become a nigger. The only time we're divided is when we're in his schools or in his banks. Where you from? Nigeria. Okay. You know what I'm saying? But on the street, you are a nigger. Whether you speak Hausa or Arabic, Sudanese don't know they're niggers, you know. They think there's something different. Black Egyptians don't know it either. You're a nigger then. One thing. So now we say thank you, because we found out that the word nigger was really insult for the word Nubian. So now we'll all be Nubians again. And then we become the majority of the world. You no longer can call us a minority, because as long as we are niggers or Negroes from all over the world with black skin, then we must be the majority. So you, Mr. Whitey, are the minority. And your pale Arab friends are less than you. They're just the And everybody wants our religion. The so-called Russians stole it, and now they call themselves Jews. The pale Arabs stole it, and now they call themselves Muslims. Right? Everybody wants our way of life. And then it was watered down and became Coptic Christians and all kind of stuff. Everybody stole our way of life because we didn't want to use it. Well, I'm saying let's jump off the wagon. We're going to move into mainstream, not mainstream Islam either. Mainstream world, because the whole world looks at us. You know why? Because if y'all stood up and looked at each other, go ahead, you're probably afraid to. Stand up and look at each other. Just look around. You notice something? There's not a place in the continent of Africa whose features is not in this room. You know what I'm saying? Everybody here don't look Sudanese. I'm quite sure you'd like to think that. But everybody here looks Nubian. Sudanese is just one part of the family. Every part of the whole continent is in this room. I mean, we affect the whole world. You understand what I'm saying? And when we establish our culture as the lost tribes, namely Israel, Ishmael, and Midian, everybody is going to marvel at you.
ولا يكون رزق ولا صراع ولا وجع فيما بعد، لأن الأمور الأولى قد مضت. And Allah shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor cry. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. those who have faith, a way of life, dwell with him in the garden.
توكلوا على كلامه القدس.
Those who have trust, by way of his holy word, shall be
هم الذين يسكنونه في جنة
They will dwell with him